going to talk on the Pfisters. I am only one by marriage, but I inherited all of the history stuff. So, and I want, before I get onto this, I wanted to tell you guys, back on that table, those books come from, they were the teacher's books from the Node School. One was Ella Dean's, she was a Pfister. But anyway, if you want to take a look at them, they're pretty, they've been with mice and a few things. But anyway, they're pretty much together. And then this cream can also come from the Node place. It was from a guy named Fred McDonald, and his name is on there, and it said to return it to him, I think it was Iowa, that it was shipped off to with the cream. I was just talking to Jimmy. We don't know much about him, but they also have one as well. And he had come here from Canada, and just the land is now owned by Jimmy and Carmen. He had his little dairy on. And Jimmy also told me that he had 800 head of chickens.
Fred McDonald did, not me.
Yeah, not Jimmy and Carmen. So before I kind of was going to tell about the Pfisters, I just wanted to read this. This was at the Lusk Library site, and if you guys have had a chance to go into that, it is a wealth of information, and Debbie is very willing. If you have information that you can't find on there that of your families, she will put it on if you give her the information. So there were a couple things that I said, Debbie, it says that the Larsons had a couple girls, but it didn't give their names, and so I gave her those names and the dates, and she's very willing to put that stuff on there. So use our site that we have, because not every city has that. So we have great data. So I just kind of wanted to start, before I start, about the Pfisters. This is written by Mrs. Doolittle. It's on the library website, but it said, she wrote it for the Lusk Herald on November 5th in 1970. But she says, the one building in the town housed the town hall. Other businesses came to life in future years, but the present, this was sufficient. The team and wagon were loaded and were ready to start for our new home. Groceries, a keg of nails, and a roll of tar paper bounced in the wagon bed as we careened over rocks and ruts. Straining horses pulled us valiantly out of sand pits and over deep rocky crevices. There were no roads, only a wire fence to mark our township line. The dusty black-eyed Susans and blue blossoms of a nondescript weed dropped their heads as though praying for a welcome death too long delayed. 12 torturous miles, and by careful scrutiny, we could see the dot on the prairie, which was to be home. We were hungry. I could scramble eggs and fry potatoes, but that was all the cooking that I knew. Our furniture had not arrived from the east, so I spread a dish towel on top of an old trunk. The can opener came into play. A few drops of kerosene sufficed in the oiled stove for the warming of the eggs and potatoes. The big can of oil had been overlooked and was still sitting on the sidewalk at the property at the grocery store in town, which would have been Van Tassel. We sat on nail kegs for chairs. The big yellow moon rising behind a bank of purple hills gave us light through the open door. A thin veil of gray clouds raced across the face of the moon, tearing themselves to shreds in their haste to get nowhere. A lone coyote sang a welcome. Tears of happiness and loneliness filled our eyes. He, Harry Doolittle, leaned across and stroked my hair while I held his hand. We were contented and happy to be together. Eventually the cabin was replaced by a rough little house, the first plastered house in the township. Settlers came and built cabins in the neighborhood. We felt close to each other. They came from many distant states, and we formed a closely knit community. It was good to see Miss Miller's snow white washing on the line a mile away. Mr. Thatcher would be out horseback rounding up his milk cows, and another neighbor might ride by tomorrow with a piece of tar paper to mend his roof. Our baby and our piano arrived almost the same time. Both were a joy. We danced from sunset to sunup to the tunes of Too Much Mustard and Turkey in the Straw. My husband liked to sing and gave out lustily when Irish Eyes Were Shining and Sweet Rosie O'Grady. We had such good times. Good times and bad times were ours to bear. Late spring rains turned into devastating blizzards, taking their tolls on livestock and sometimes human beings. We experienced many things. With the passing of the Homestead Act, the propaganda machine had begun to function. Promises of cabbages as big as wash tubs enticed prospective settlers. Soon land agents appeared who, for a small fee, would select the most suitable sites for the newcomer. Rough lumber and tar paper shacks soon dotted the prairie as the pioneers streamed in. The old cow trails became roads after a time, and barbed wire fences gradually appeared. All roads led to Lusk and Van Tassel, where the Doolittles, Sifke's, Theobars, and Martins filed claims. The old-timers, the Sides, the Freezies, the Ellicotts, and the Pfisters were already home. So with that, I'm going to tell you about John and Hannah. They were born in Junction City, Kansas on February 2nd, 1857. Ella Josephine Arnold, also known as Ellen, was born in Kansas City, Missouri, November 11th, 1861. And on May 22nd, 1879, they were married, and in 1884 made the brave decision to follow John's father to Wyoming, along with her brother, Edward Arnold. They settled initially on a homestead 9 miles west of Lusk at the northern edge of the wooded hills. And after a few years, the family found that the higher ground meant longer, harsher winters than the flatlands to the east. Seeking better conditions, they relocated again, this time settling on a homestead along the Niobrara River, next to a grassy meadow about 3 miles southwest of the Node Post Office in 1889. John and Ellen were blessed with 13 children: Margaret, Maggie, and her twin brother Valentine, Richard, Jane, John, Francis, William, Ella, and her twin brother Vincent, Edwin, and Anna. So my family was Edwin's family. We come from Edwin. So 2 infants sadly died at birth. Life on the homestead was challenging. School for the children was held only 3 months each summer. Ellen fought hard to add another month to the school term, but many in the community opposed the idea. Devoted to her family, Ellen created a warm home and filled its walls with pictures. She passed away on April 7th, 1926, after suffering a stroke. Not long after her death, tragedy struck again when the family home burned down. The fire started when bath water was being heated on the kitchen stove, ignited in the chimney. And all the family pictures, history were burned. So we don't really have any pictures of the older family. In the years that followed, John developed diabetes and eventually lost both legs. And to help him maintain his independence, the family outfitted a car with hand controls so that he could drive. John passed away on June 3rd, 1939. In 1919, John Jr. and his brother William Bill had purchased 10,000 head of Mexican steers. During the Northwood Trail Drive, a blizzard hit, killing the entire herd. Bill returned to the ranch and worked to help his father keep the operation afloat during the difficult years of the agriculture depression. After Ellen's death, daughters Ella and Ann used their mother's life insurance payout to assist Bill in saving the ranch. Despite their efforts, the post-World War influx of homesteaders and the continuing depression made it extremely hard. In 1921, Ella purchased the Henry Gray homestead, which is a few miles north of the family's original homestead. She and her brother Bill partnered in operating the property. In the mid-1930s, Bill constructed the landmark Big White Barn. a structure that is large enough to shelter 500 head of cattle or 2,500 head of sheep in the storm. In 1937, Ella married Carl Dean. They had one son who was Carl Jr., and he died in the 1950s of appendicitis. Carl Sr. passed away in 1947, leaving Ella to manage on her own, and she continued to operate the ranch, taking in cattle and personally riding out to check windmills daily until her death in 1963. After Ella's passing, her brother Edwin and his wife Martha purchased the property. The ranch was later passed to their children and eventually to Jack Jr. and Ronda Pfister. Ronda went on to establish the Jack Pfister Ranch with her 3 daughters who continue to operate the ranch today. Today, the landmark barn still stands as a testament to the family's legacy along with the remnants of the original home and outbuildings. It's not white anymore though, guys. There is no paint on it. But we still own the property and use the barn. So, that's all I have. Jimmy said he remembers helping. You said you remember helping John.
No, my dad,
Oh, your dad did. Okay.
in 1935. That was
1935. So
before my
that
time.
was